आकाशवल्लेपविदूरगोऽहम् आदित्यवत् भास्यविलक्षणोऽहम् स्वराज्य साम्राज्य विभूतिरेषा भवत्कृपा श्रीमहिमप्रसादात् प्राप्ता मया श्रीगुरवे महात्मने नमो नमस्तेस्तु पुनर्नमोस्तु नमो नमस्तेस्तु पुनर्नमोस्तु नमो नमस्तेस्तु पुनर्नमोस्तु नमस्तस्मै सदैकस्मै कस्मै चिन्महसे नमः यदेतद्विश्वरूपेण राजते गुरुराजते यदेतद्विश्वरूपेण राजते गुरुराजते. Hari. One question. Swamiji, Hari Om. My question is, what is samskaras and how they are related to the three gunas? How the personality traits, introvert or extrovert, can be related to the three gunas. Samskara means whatever culture is there we are carrying. It can be some inherited, some we have developed samskara by living in a certain family, being in a certain society with some certain friends. Whatever culture we grow, that itself is called samskara. Generally, samskara is used in a good sense, but it means bad also. That kharab samskar hai bhi bolte hain. That is whatever culture one has. So naturally it has to do with the gunas, because samskaras can be sattvika, can be rajasika, can be tamasika. That whatever culture is there, his mind, his body, his practices, his buddhi, everything will have the corresponding guna orientation. So the relationship should not be anything difficult, that it has nothing to do with that. I mean, the gunas are equally applicable to the samskaras also. Suppose you are born in a sattvic family with sattvic habits around. Normally you will develop sattvika samskaras. Rarely some accident takes place and the child might be absolutely different samskara. Otherwise he will inherit. Further samskaras he will grow with his growth, his association, what he is given to. It can be easily transformed. Samskara can be built up. Suppose people come with not so much of purity or other practices to the ashram. After coming to the ashram, after undergoing certain practices, they develop those shuchitva. Shuchitva means purity. And as our mind becomes more and more desireless, then also we develop shuchitva, purity, which is sattvika samskara. How the personality traits, introvert and extrovert, can be related to the three gunas. This introvert and extrovert we are saying, but generally introvert means there will be more of sattva guna predominance. Because sattva guna means you are looking for the joy within, you are always getting anchored in the inmost essence. So is it not introvertness? Generally the sattvika people will be introvert by nature. Extrovert means those whose lives are governed by the sense attraction, repulsion too much. So they will be more rajasic. They will not be so tamasic also, because extrovert, we use the word for those who are very much given to interacting with the outer world, various engagements, social engagements, this, that, all, etc. So it can be assumed that the tamasika quality will be less, but it can be there also. But for introvert, normally the sattvika qualities will be more. Unless it is a tamasika depression. The whatever qualities we have said, you have to analyze according to that. Suppose a person is extremely depressed. I was telling you yesterday that always thinking that I am sick and extremely depressed. He may appear to be introvert, but that is not because of the sattva guna, because of the tama guna. So the gunas are independent of this, but generally introvert means he will have sattva guna more, because to have the anchorage within, in the inmost self, always looking for the joy within. Punarjanma is a religious model. You can relate that the samskara has come from the previous life, but nobody can prove that. Normally we are inheriting the samskara from parents, grandparents, grandparents, like that mostly we are. In considering the previous life, you have to think that the individuality was there before you were born, which is not really true and which cannot be proved also. In Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, when Yajnavalkya, generally these truths are not disclosed in the open, so they were restrictive about it. In Yajnavalkya Maitreyi Samvada, Yajnavalkya is teaching his wife Maitreyi. He is saying that when the body falls, there is no individuality. So he explains that. Then Maitreyi says that, sir, you are confusing me. That I am getting confused, because she also had the idea of Punarjanma like thing, and the Atma is going from this body to that body. Actually, Atma is all pervading, it cannot move at all. Where is the question of leaving one body and going to another body? If at all anything is there which moves from one body to another body, that means it is moving. It is in the objectitude. This point you should remember. The Atma in spirituality we are speaking of, it can never be available in the objective field, in the objectitude. You can never know the Atma as different from you. That I am knowing the Atma which is different from me. Normally all knowledge is different from me. I am having the knowledge. In this case it is Advaya knowledge is aparokshanubhuti it is called. You cannot know it as different from you. So naturally the Atma the religion speaks about undergoing Punarjanma is not the Atma of spirituality or Bhagavad Gita or Upanishads, because Atma is one, transcendental, all pervading. There cannot be any movement, there cannot be any taint. It is not touched by any change in the body. What to talk about birth and death? Repeatedly we quote those na jayate na mriyate va kadachit, which does not have birth and death. How can there be rebirth? So this question should come to a spiritual seeker and he should analyze. Now if such an Atma is there which religion is talking about, actually it is called Jiva, then it is for science to discover that, because it is in the objective field. It is not the subject. It can be, if it can be seen moving from one body to another body, that means it is in the ken of scientific investigation. It is in the objectitude. If our instruments become very powerful to detect such a presence, one day we may find out also. We cannot disprove. We cannot prove also now. Another question today was that if somebody becomes mad, then what will happen to his gunas? Now, I think we are getting confused about the gunas, that guna has got nothing to do with the madness as such. Madness is a defect of the body. Body means of the ego, say the hub of the ego, brain or whatever. Even Alzheimer's disease or losing the usual, which are that we become vegetative and all. These are damage of the brain. That means damage of the ego, which is hub of our personality. Suppose schizophrenia, that split personality. These are all abnormal condition of the being. It has nothing to do with the three gunas. whatever the three gunas, it will be working there also. Suppose a person has become mad, whether he was a sattva-guni person or a rajoguni person or a tamoguni person will govern the behavior in the madness also. But the madness is another characteristic. Madness cannot be linked directly to a guna that way. I have seen two incidents. One is my own Purvashrama mother, who, you call it dementia or Alzheimer, whatever. She had forgotten everything almost. She was not responding in anything. But throughout the day, she would only say Namah Shivaya, and any good songs or devotional songs or anything good things spoken about, she would profusely shed tears. And it is all Anandashru. It is not crying out of suffering or fear. So, seeing her, anybody would feel that it is height of Sattva Guna, that throughout the day the person is remaining in such a state, whatever happening, she was not. I think I am correct when I say this. Is it not so? She was not responding to other situations. Whereas I have seen another lady who became a little destabilized, mentally destabilized. And throughout the day she was so agitated, so angry, and using such filthy language, abusive language to everybody. As such, she was a respectable lady, very good, very austere, undergone lot of austerity, much more than what we do or so. But this defect in the brain resulted in such a state. So I don't know whether I am correct, but I would analyze in this manner that whatever qualities were there, seeing her at that state, we cannot say that she is a sattvika. She was so much sattvika. It is more of a rajasika state perhaps. And it is not so much to do with sattvika, rajasika, tamasika, but the fact is that when whatever we are putting a control of our viveka. That means whatever are there in our mind, we are not always pouring it out. Seeing the circumstances, we are behaving. But if that control valve goes wrong, then whatever garbage is there in the mind, that also will come out in the. So the best spiritual practice is always to clean up the garbage, which we mean by the purity. Purity sadhana for purity. If we don't clean up the garbage, we may have repeated samadhi, we may have many things, we may be able to chant everything, we may be able to sing very well, everything will be done. But if somehow the valve goes wrong, all garbage will come out. So it is not a full cleansing of the being. That is what the real spiritual practice is. We should try to clean up as far as possible. And that will make us happy, that will give us the sattvika sukha. Because by hosting ill feeling about others, or agitation, or blaming tendencies, or always abusing tendencies, blaming tendencies, we are never happy. You think about yourself. We get angry, but nobody is happy with the anger. It is a stress in our mind. Whereas when we love, even if we can love the person I don't like at all, somehow we love. So forcefully one day we hug and say that I have not been able to love you, but I think I will be able to love you now, I love you. Somehow you do it once. You will find that such a great release you will feel inside. Because we were hosting the stress by blaming or criticizing or condemning somebody. The more we are free of that, the mind will become like the autumn sky, free. So, these are not exactly to do with the gunas, that if one is a sattva guni, he will not become mad. We cannot say that. I may become mad tomorrow. What is the safety switch? Suppose somebody hits here and something goes wrong, I will start speaking irrelevant things. But whatever guna constitution are there, that will happen in that without valve also, whatever rajasic, tamasic, sattvic. So these disturbances in the physical disturbances, diseases or the accidents they should not be related to the gunas. Whatever gunas are there, accordingly he will behave. Let us chant from 19th. Nanyam gunebhyah kartaram
Nanyam gunebhyah kartaram
yada drashtanupashyati
yada drashtanupashyati
gunebhyascha param vetti
gunebhyascha param vetti
madbhavam sodhigacchati
madbhavam sodhigacchati
gunanitanatītyatrin
gunanetanatītyatrin
dehi deha samudbhavan
dehi deha samudbhavan
janma mrityu jara dukkhaihi
janma mrityu jara dukkhaihi
vimukto mritamashnute
vimukto mritamashnute
gunanitanatītyatrin
gunanetanatītyatrin
dehi deha samudbhavan
dehi deha samudbhavan
janma mrityu jara dukkhaihi
janma mrityu jara dukkhaihi
vimukto mritamashnute.
vimukto mritamashnute.
So here Krishna's initial part of the first section of the lecture stops here. He gives the indication that after describing all the three guna factors, everything, how they are binding the jiva to the body, the dehi to the body, and how when each guna goes up or comes down, what happens, what are the karmas, activities corresponding to them, how do you understand from the activities, from the results, etc. All these are over. That discourse is over. Doing that, finally he said, yesterday we did it, when a person attains my state, that means Krishna's state, that means when he understands that he is the universal transcendental self, he no longer identifies himself with the guna functions. So he says that there are two factors here. One is that gunebhyaha anyam kartaram na anupashyati. Who? Drashta. Yada drashta gunebhyaha anyam kartaram na anupashyati. This is one. Number two is tatha gunebhyascha param vetti. These are the two things. Then saha madbhavam adhigacchati. He becomes like me. So the first one is, he is saying that drashta, there is something called the drashta. Normally we see that I am the drashta and whatever I am seeing, that is the drishya. Actually drashta has another word, drik. Drik also means drashta. So there is a very small book of Shankaracharya, Vidyaranya Muni, which is called Drik Drishya Viveka. Drik Drishya Viveka, which I am taking in the morning here. Drik Drishya Viveka means the difference between the drashta and the drishya. That means seer and the seen. So each approach is based on such logic. Just like in 13th chapter we had Kshetra Kshetrajna Viveka. All are basically same. That how to identify who am I and what are not connected with it but unnecessarily I am getting associated with it. That is the basic logic. Now drashta, normally we consider the whole body mind personality, with that I am the drashta. Now what happens is, in our, where the deep in our heart or in our buddhi, where the understanding is taking place. Understanding, we generally call it buddhi, but it is not the external functioning buddhi so much, but where from the buddhi is originating. For example, suppose I am, I know that I am. or that I have a mind. I know that I have a mind. This is not that I am knowing it through our five indriyas, five sense organs. With that I am not knowing, I am not able to see my mind or what I am, I am not able to see that. Also, it is not logically deducted also, that logically it is not inferred that I have a mind or I am. That is not logically inferred. Suppose logically prove that you are not going to accept it. You will say, I know that I am. Now, where this knowledge is taking place, that I am, this amness, where it is taking place. So, that is what is called it is a reflection of the consciousness or chit or the transcendental Atma or Brahman or whatever we may say, reflection of the consciousness in our buddhi. Buddhi means where from the original buddhi is coming. We call it bodhi, we call it prajna, we give various names. Basically, it is the consciousness reflection in the buddhi, which has got various names in our Shastras. One common name is, it is called Chidabhasa. Chit Abhasa becomes Chidabhasa. Why? Because the transcendental consciousness, which is everywhere, on which the whole world is appearing to be, that is called Chit. So, it is Chit Abhasa, means it is not exactly the Chit, but it is like the Chit. It is a reflection of the Chit. We have already discussed about, suppose the sun is there and it is reflected in the waves. In a lake, there are millions of waves. In each of the wave, the sun is reflected. So, each wave is showing a sun, that as if the sun is there. But that sun, the reflected sun, is not moving with the wave. Sometimes it is becoming half, sometimes it is full, it is dancing with the wave. If the wave is muddy, the sun will look muddy, or the moon will look muddy, whatever we think of. If the wave is colored, suppose the water is colored, then the sun will look colored. So, this is what the consciousness, the reflection of the consciousness in our buddhi, when it associates with the ego, it is just like the association of the reflection of the sun with the wave. The sun appears to be moving, but is the real sun moving? It is not touched by the waves at all. When the wave dies, nothing happens to the sun, that reflection dies. A new wave is born. The reflection comes there, nothing happens, no addition or subtraction in the sun at all. Like that, in the soul, in the Atma, there is no attraction, no addition, subtraction, change, taint, anything is there. But because it is happening in the reflection in our buddhi, we are thinking that I am becoming sorry, I am becoming happy, I am becoming sick, etc. And when the body is dying, I feel that I am going to die. So, it is the first thing is the reflection of the consciousness in our ego, in our buddhi, let us say. First is in the buddhi, where the understanding is taking place. That gives rise to the I-ness in us or amness in us, the aham. That is why the Atma is called aham pratyaya gocharaha. Atma's definition is aham pratyaya gocharaha. See, they are using the word pratyaya, means it is a conviction. That I am, that amness is a conviction. It is not an inferred knowledge or a seen knowledge by the... It is neither pratyaksha nor paroksha. I have explained pratyaksha, paroksha, etc. Normally, we have two kinds of knowledge, pratyaksha and paroksha. Pratyaksha means whatever can be seen with our sense organs, eyes, ears, etc. That is all pratyaksha. That the glass there, it is pratyaksha. Prati aksha, that means which is in front of the indriyas. Aksha means the indriyas. Paroksha is inference. That means I am seeing smoke and I am inferring there must be fire. Where from the smoke is coming? Let me go and check whether there is fire or not. Actually, most of our knowledge is paroksha. Even scientific knowledge, most of it is paroksha. Nobody has ever seen any atom or even the elementary particles, nobody has seen. It is all on the basis of experiments we perform that we infer that there could be something like an electron, proton, one is having negative charge, one is having positive charge. What we are seeing is different experiments. There one common experiment, we call it cloud chamber. So from the track in the cloud chamber, some are like this, some are like this. From that we infer that this particle was positively charged, this particle was negatively charged, another going straight is not charged, it is neutron, all those things. If you go to further down the level also, with all the experiments have to be, whatever experiment we do, the final result has to be pratyaksha. Suppose we are seeing the electron microscope. Electron we are not able to see, but the final result from the microscope should be visible to us or known by us. So we are from that pratyaksha, we are inferring that it is this kind of a particle. Is it not? Like that, God is also an inference. Why? Because why do you think of God? Because everything from birth we see everything is causal here, related by causality. That unless I push the table it will not move. Unless I put my force I will not be able to stand up. Everywhere little, unless I eat food my hunger will not be satiated. There is nothing in this world which is not causal. Everything is related by causality. That is why we think that there must be a cause for the universe also. Is it not? This causal sense gives us that there must be cause of the whole universe. So we think of a God who has created the universe. It is not a very foolproof logic. Finally, we have to transcend that, which we do in spirituality. But the concept of God is coming from that inference that there must be some cause, and by our nature we think it is a superhuman being or some cosmic intelligence who is controlling and all that, which all are negated finally as we approach in spirituality. So, normally this pratyaksha and paroksha knowledge we know. In spirituality, we have introduced another knowledge called aparoksha. That means it is neither pratyaksha nor paroksha. Suppose that I am, it is a knowledge that I am. Can you call it pratyaksha? No. Can you call it paroksha? No. Even that I have a mind is also, we cannot call it pratyaksha, we cannot call it paroksha. That you have a mind is paroksha. Because I have a mind, I know, and you're seeing your behavior, I infer that this person also has a mind. Sometimes it is disproved, then I will say that, oh, I thought he has a mind, but no, he is a computer, he is a robot, he doesn't have a mind. Because anybody else having a mind is the inference. Suppose the insects or the dog, we don't know what kind of a mind they have. Seeing the expressions of the dog or loyalty of the dog, we can think that, oh, this kind of a mind he might be having. These are all inference. But I have mind, that is not an inference, that I know. So that is called aparoksha. Although this aparoksha term we don't use for these simple experiences which all of us have. The aparoksha term is used that the anubhuti of ourself. That means in samadhi, this self-knowledge is not a dual knowledge. As long as we are trying to understand what is Atma, what is Brahman, etc., there is the concept of the Atma, concept of the Brahman, and I am trying to know. So I am different from the jnana, the knowledge. I am acquiring the knowledge. But because this knowledge is about my own self, finally as we know more and more, as I get transformed, that knowledge gets fused into me. I and the knowledge become the same. The seer and the seen, the knower and the known become the same. They get fused into one. That is why we call it yoga. The real yoga is this yoga. All other yogas are preparatory for this. The physical yogas are making our personality ready for having this ultimate fusion of the yoga. So there it is not the knowledge of the knower is knowing the knowledge. Knower himself becomes the knowledge. That is called the aparoksha, because it is neither paroksha nor pratyaksha. So, advaya knowledge or advaita anubhuti is called experience, advaya, non-dual experience is called aparoksha anubhuti. So, they are referring to this drashta. The real drashta we have to know by the aparoksha, that it is the seer in us who is not getting associated anything at all. But when the reflection of the consciousness in the buddhi, that gives us the feeling of I, the next association we make is with the ego. That I gets, that reflection of the consciousness gets identified. In Sanskrit we use the word tadatmya, identified with the ego. Actually, ego is not conscious. With this association, the ego becomes a conscious entity, behaves like a conscious entity. And that is our general I we think of. That is our identity anybody has. That we think that that is what I am. That is why that ego is a conscious entity for us. That is what I am. Now the next step, this ego, this consciousness gets identified with the body, mind, thoughts, antakarana, as well as the senses and everything. So the whole being behaves as the I. Is it understandable or not? But we have to understand this. How can it not be? That is why we are not able to know that the body-mind personality is a function of the gunas where I am not associated. Because of this association, I think that I am doing this. I am the karta of whatever the body-mind personality has done. I am enjoying this. All these illusions are coming. So when we can identify this, that drashta does not create any such karta, egoistic karta, who is doing everything, other than the gunas. Gunebhya anyam kartaram na anupashyati. Gunebhya anyam kartaram. That means whatever activities are taking place, it is all gunas activities. If we do not construe any other karta who is doing the activities, the drashta remains aloof from there. He does not construe any other karta who is controlling the gunas and doing the activities like that. Now, why did they say anupashyati? There are two ways we can understand. Because pashyati they could have said. Why anupashyati? Anupashyati means following. Sees following something. It can be understood in two ways. One is anupashyati means following the vichara, that how will he not see the karta? Normally we are always egoistic, we are seeing that I am doing this, I am doing that. How will I be able to not see that karta? It is through this kind of a vichara that we have to understand who am I and who is the world, what is sentient, what is not sentient, who is the revealer and what is the revealed, who is the kshetra and who is the kshetrajna. So following that analysis, vichara and understanding, finally it has to dawn in the understanding. Vichara is only initial. Through that the understanding will dawn. So anupashyati is following the vichara, he sees that there is no other karta than the gunas. There is no construed karta associated with that. Another way of understanding anupashyati is this egoistic I, that karta we are positing, we are construing, that is actually we are following the whatever is happening, we are construing it. It is actually not true. So na anupashyati means he no longer sees such a construed ego. Both way we can interpret. Both way it is the same. Gunebhyasya, this is the first thing, that he will not identify a special karta, that I am the doer, I am the enjoyer. That kind of a thing will not be there. He will think only I am the witness. Just like the sun there, he is seeing the reflections are moving and everything is happening in the wave. Sun doesn't think that I am the wave, does he? Sun doesn't feel any affectation also when the waves are moving and its reflections are changing. Sun doesn't get affected by that, oh my reflection has become red, my reflection has got cut, my head has got cut. No, 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 this wave should not be there. It allows all the waves to show himself in any manner because he is not affected by anything at all. Exactly same thing will happen. He will not get affected by the play of the gunas. Now that is one thing, that's segregation. Then next point is gunebhyascha param vetti. He identifies something excelling or transcending the gunas. Without that, how can he just separate out? Then he will become dead. Only the gunas are inconscient, insentient, they are playing, and there is nothing else. That karta has gone. So he has to identify his identity with something else. That is the gunebhya param. That is something superior, transcending the gunas. He has to know that and identify that. Gunebhyascha param vetti. This is the same thing as yesterday I quoted from the other chapter. That yo buddhehe paratastu saha, which is transcending the buddhi, that is the truth. Evam buddhehe param buddhva samstabhya atmanam atmana jahi shatrum mahavaho kamarupam durasadam. That knowing that which is transcending the buddhi and getting established in that, you can win over the kama. Because kamas are all playing in that. He will no more, knowing his real identity, he will no more be affected by the kamas. So he will attain my state, Krishna says. In the next verse he says, Gunan etan atityatrin dehi deha samudbhavan janma mrityu jara dukkhaihi vimukto amritamasnute. He says that deha samudbhavan etan trin gunan atitya. See, this deha samudbhavan again is a very clever word of Sanskrit which can be interpreted in two ways. What is that? One is which is originating from the deha, or which is the cause of the deha, both ways. The deha is originating from the gunas, or the gunas are originating from the deha. Whichever way you say, it doesn't matter. Actually it is simultaneous. The gunas, the prakriti, the deha, we are seeing the gunas and prakriti only because of the deha. If the deha is not there, that will not be known. So they are parallel. Whichever way we want to understand, we can do it. Now, when the dehi, that means one who is residing in the deha, earlier they have said that the gunas bind as if the gunas bind the dehi to the deha by their actions. So what are the bondages created? Everything they have discussed. Now he is saying that when the dehi transcends the etan trin gunan atitya, all these three gunas he transcends. Where from these gunas have come? Deha samudbhavan, the originating from the deha. Remaining in the body itself, he is transcending the association, the identification with the gunas. The body remains a function of the gunas, but he no longer, that tadatmya, that he no longer identifies with that. He transcends the gunas. Then what happens? Janma mrityu jara dukkhaihi vimuktaha amritam asnute. He becomes immortal, surpassing janma mrityu jara vyadi. That means there is no change. This is very simple. Wherever they say amritam, amritam means immortal. In the world, in the universe, there is nothing immortal. Whatever is created will undergo death also. So whenever referring to anything immortal, we have to understand it is not in the objective ken, it is not in the objectude. Immortal can only be the subject consciousness, which is not an object which you can see. Any object will be limited, you can see, it can move, it can get born, it can die. Only the subject which is not an object, you cannot give any parameter to it, any objective parameter you cannot assign to it. जो हमारी आत्मा है उनमें कुछ भी वस्तुगुण नहीं है. वस्तुगुण समझते हैं ना, जो जितनी विषय है, वस्तुएं हैं, उनको देखा जाता है, सुना जाता है, टच किया जाता है, स्पर्श किया जा सकता है. दीज आर ऑल वस्तु गुण. तो आत्मा में ऐसा कोई गुण नहीं है और कर्तृत्व भोक्तृत्व भी नहीं है. कर्तृत्व रहने से भी हम बोल सकते हैं वो ये किया है, उन्होंने ये किया है, नहीं किया है, वो भी नहीं बता सकते हैं कुछ, क्योंकि उनको ऐसे हमसे अलग रूप से उनको जाना नहीं जा सकता है. उनको केवल ही अहम प्रत्यय गोचरा, एमनेस, हम हूँ, मैं हूँ, वो हूँ, it can be known only as that. So we cannot describe any objective parameter or any objective property to it. So only non-changing element is this Atma or the Brahman, which is immortal. Whenever we say immortal means it doesn't have birth, doesn't have death, does not have any in-between changes also. So when he has transcended these gunas, which is causing the deha or which is offshoot of the, which are offshoot of the deha, then he attains this immortal identity. That is what we are always saying, that the transcendental Atma, he identifies his I with that Atma, no longer with the egoistic I. This is the meaning. समझे? नहीं. Now, Krishna has always been clever in asking questions. In the second chapter, initially you remember, you have gone through so many times, most of you. The first chapter, what was Arjuna's position? He said that ahovat mahat papam gattum vyavasita vayam yat rajya sukhalobhena hantum svajanamudhyataha. See, now I am able to remember some of the shlokas. I think after some time I will not be able to remember this also. As the brain gets degenerated, will you say that Sattva Guna has gone down? Yes, Sattva Guna will go down in the sense that Sattva Guna enhances the memory. But the fact is that when the physical degeneration is there, corresponding Sattva Guna will go. He says that Ahovat mahat papam gattum vyavasita vayam. He is telling Krishna, at that time he was Krishna's friend, not a shishya. We are out to commit a great sin, mahat papam. Why? Yat rajya sukha lobhena hantum svajana mudyataha. We are going to kill our own kith and kin. Not only that, in that my most beloved grandfather and the most respected teacher from whom I have learnt archery, I am going to kill them. For what? Rajya sukha lobhena. That is winning the kingdom and enjoying the sukha of ruling the kingdom. Out of the greed of that, I am going to fight this war and killing. Now it was very clear that if Arjuna had fought the war with this kind of a mindset, it would have been a mahat papa. It would have been one of the greatest sin. He has learnt archery from Drona. He has been the most beloved grandson of Bhishma. But Krishna said that no, we are fighting the war not because of this at all. We are fighting the war because all the kings have become corrupt and the country has to be saved from corrupt rule, and we have to establish some righteous rule. And in doing that, it so happens that your most favorite grandfather and the teacher is on the other side, because they were the king's employees. And when the king is going to fight, suppose if India attacks somebody, the military head, if he does not agree also, he has to attack. He cannot say that, no, I will not do, I will go to the opposite side. They have to. After the India-Pakistan division, many of the fightings, the close friends had to fight with each other because they became now two enemies. So, he said that it has to be fought because for establishing a righteous rule on earth. You don't associate with your own gain or anything selfish motive. In that first chapter, you will find most of almost the whole chapter is Arjuna preaching Krishna, not Krishna preaching Arjuna. Have you noticed? The first chapter is Arjuna's lecture to Krishna. And he is lecturing Krishna on dharma and adharma. This will happen, that will happen, if adharma comes, then that will, as if Krishna did not know all these things. After this lecture, when he started shedding tears and falling, sweating that I will not be able to fight and all, then initially Krishna gave in Bengali we call it adong dholai, that धोबी को जो कपड़ा धोने के लिए देते हैं ना, जिसमें दागी रह जाता है तो उसको सोडा दे के अच्छी तरह उसको रगड़ना पड़ता है. तो वैसा जो जब मन ज़्यादा इगोइस्टिक रहता है उनको वो अच्छी तरह सोडा दे के उसको ब्रश करना पड़ता है, नहीं तो ईगो जाएगा नहीं. तो दैट ही स्टार्टेड, कृष्णा स्टार्टेड सिंपली thrashing him. क्लैब्यम मास्मगमः पार्थ नयनम तयि उपपद्यते. That this is unmanliness. What are you doing? It will only bring ill reputation to your clan. This is not expected of you at all. So after getting that, Arjuna becomes humble. 7th verse of 2nd chapter comes only then. And that is most important verse for the Bhagavad Gita message to be given. If Arjuna had not picked up that stance, then Krishna would not have given him Bhagavad Gita. What is that? Karpanya dosho apahata svabhavaha prichhami tvam dharma sammudha chetaha yat shreyasyat nishchitam bruhi tanme shishyasteham shadimam tvam prapannam. Is it correct? He says Karpanya dosho apahata svabhavaha. He now first time he is confessing that first chapter he has lectured so much with so much of egoistic stance. Now he is confessing that, oh Krishna, my mind is haunted by Karpanya dosha. Karpanya dosha हम लोग कृपणा बोलते हैं खाली पैसा के विषय में. सचमुच की कृपणता है मन की कृपणता. The Karpanya, miserliness, the more important miserliness is of the mind. When we are not able to conceive anything great, when we are not able to appreciate others' virtues, when we are not able to have a comprehensive vision of certain things, then we call it Karpanya doshaha. Karpanya dosho apahata svabhavaha prichhami tvam dharma sammudha chetaha. I have become absolutely confused about what is dharma and what is adharma. Dharma sammudha, samyak mudha. Mudha means confused. Samyak mudha, absolutely mudha. Dharma sammudha chetaha. He is confessing now, becoming humble, that I am confused about what is dharma and what is adharma. Where lies Shreyas? You tell me that. So here is a great commitment that I am not a seeker of prayers, I am a seeker of Shreyas. In Kathopanishad, this Shreyas and Prayas are very well defined. Prayers means whatever can be immediately pleasurable, but ultimately it will take us away from the auspicious goal. And Shreyas means immediately it may not be very pleasant, but it will finally keep me and take me to the auspicious goal. So he is saying, he is committing that I am a seeker of Shreyas, not of, because earlier he said Rajya Sukha Lobhena. That is prayers. That is out of foolishness, because for a good king the Rajya is never for Sukha at all. It's a crown of thorn. A good king will always be tormented. So many kings had left their kingdom and gone away, not being able to bear the torment of kingship. So there it appeared that the Arjuna is a seeker of prayers. Now the whole scene has changed. He is saying that I am dharma sammudha chetaha, I am Karpanya dosha apahata svabhavaha, and I want Shreyas. I don't want prayers. Yat Shreyas yat, where lies the Shreyas? Nishchitam bruhitanme. You tell me without any ambiguity, without any doubt, so that I can follow. You tell me in a manner so that I can follow. There should not be any ambiguity about it. Why should Krishna tell him? He was just now preaching Krishna and suddenly he is asking like this, will Krishna tell? Any guru will tell like that? He was just now preaching the guru. But the last line comes there. He says, Shishyasteham. I am your Shishya. Shishya means one who takes the Shasana. That means the discipline given by the guru. If the person takes to the discipline given by the guru, then only he is called a Shishya. Most of the Shishyas do not do that. They are named Shishya, but they don't do. Shishyaste, Baba used to say that Guru mele lakhe lakh, Shishya nahi mele ek. He repeatedly used to say that because the Guru tendencies are very common in people. Before we know anything, we try to preach others and tell others. And tell others means taking the position of the Guru. But real humility to learn things from anybody, that is very rare. So he says, Shishyasteham, I am your disciple. Shadhi mam, you give me your discipline, your shasana, you give me your discipline. Why should you give? Tvam prapannam. This is the most important part. When the Shishya says that I have taken refuge in you, Tvam prapannam, I have taken refuge in you, then the Guru cannot dislodge him, cannot refuse him anymore. In Vivek Chudamani also you will remember the initial verses. When the Shishya says that I have taken chase means that I have taken refuge in you, then the Guru has to give him. So Krishna's message starts thereafter. Now, right in the beginning to what was his duty, he has to take away the grief from Arjuna's mind. He was trembling, he was sweating. So he has to take him away and give him a stability so that he can understand and grasp the message. If right there when he is trembling and he is absolutely shaken, if you start talking about the soul, what will happen to him? So, what he did is he started talking about the soul in a manner which will bring up his spirit. He will be inspired by that. Because Krishna is a realized person. He can present the truth of the soul in a manner that anybody listening to it with humility will be inspired. Although they may not be able to understand, the knowledge will not come. But they will get inspired by our real identity. This is our real identity. We are all Amritasya Putraha. We are all children of immortality. Why should we think that I am small? I am haunted by Janma Mrityu. The soul never dies, never gets born. So by that, Arjuna got inspired. And we can easily see that when he got inspired, that is the Sankhya Yoga, that is the second chapter, most of the shlokas. When he got inspired, then he comes out with a very intelligent question, not intelligent, practical question. What is that? Sthitaprajnasya ka bhasha samadhisthasya keshava sthitadhi kim prabhasheta kimasita brajeta kim. What is that? Oh Krishna, you have told me about the soul, the truth of the Atma, which our identity is. Well, it is accepted. But this knowledge, I would like to know what happens to a person when he realizes this knowledge. That knowledge as such is abstract, is it not? But this is the knowledge about our identity. When a person actualizes that knowledge, naturally it will bring in some changes in him, because it is about his own identity. So I would rather like to know how a knower behaves, what is his state. That will be practical for me, because I will be able to follow whatever his behavioral traits are, whatever he is doing. It becomes demonstrated, it becomes practical for me to follow. So he asked that two part of the question is Sthita Prajnasya ka bhasha. Sthita Prajna means Samadhisthasya Sthita Prajnasya ka bhasha. A person whose consciousness has got stabilized in Samadhi. In Samadhi there is no vritti, there is no oscillation. So a person whose consciousness has got stabilized in samadhi, how do you define it? This is one thing, because at that time he is not, there is no behavioral expression, he is sitting. How do you define such a state? This is the first question. And the second question is, Thitadhihi kim prabhasheta kim asita brajeta kim. That means, what are his behavioral traits? How does he sit? How does he walk? How does he speak? These are figurative expressions. That means, what will be his behavioral qualities? Then the Sthita Prajna Darshana starts, and Krishna tells what are the traits of characteristics of a Sthita Prajna. The same characteristics he has spoken of in 12th chapter, which is called Bhakti Yoga. Generally, bhakti, we think that it is very simple and I am given to bhakti, I don't have jnana and all. It is not like that. The real bhakti is not different from jnana, and real jnana is not different from bhakti. Bhagavad Gita in 18th chapter, it equates fully the two, that Shuddha Jnana and Shuddha Bhakti, both are the same. So, he completely presents it in a manner that a real bhakta will have certain behavioral traits. So, that these are called Bhakta Lakshanas. About 22 or 24 characteristics are given in 12th chapter, which are more or less same as that Sthita Prajna Lakshana. If you compare it, it's only a different way of expression, nothing different. Then in 13th chapter, he said that what is called jnana, he enumerated 20 qualities and then said what? Etad jnanamiti proktam ajnanam yadatonyatha. The conglomeration of these 20 qualities, assembly of these 20 qualities is called the jnana, and rest are all ajnana. That means one to have the jnana, will have to have all these 20 qualities. The saving factor is that if one quality we grow, the other qualities grow with it, because it is all to do with the expansion of our identity. That as our mind expands and we come closer and closer to the transcendental soul, that means we start feeling that I am universal, the smallness, selfishness, constricted nature, all these go. All these qualities will automatically adorn us. So, not that one by one we have to acquire all the 20 qualities, they will come together. And that was the 13th chapter. Now in 14th chapter again, Arjuna is asking the same question, same practical question. Arjuna uvacha kairlingai strin gunanetan atito bhavati prabho किमाचारः कथं चैतान् त्रीन् गुणान् अतिवर्तते कैर्लिङ्गैः स्त्रीन् गुणानेतान् अतीतो भवति प्रभो किमाचारः कथं चैतान् त्रीन् गुणान् अतिवर्तते हे प्रभो कैः लिङ्गैः एतान् त्रीन् गुणान् अतीतः भवति कैर्लिङ्गैः linga means characteristic mark, that is lakshana, in Hindi lakshana. That is, what are the insignia, what are the characteristic marks by which a person becomes gunatita? Kim acharaha, how will be his behavior? That is, if a person becomes a gunatita, what will be his acharana, what will be his behavioral traits? Katham cha etan trin gunan ativartate. Katham cha means kis upay se, kaise. And how a person transcends these three gunas? Because so far he has not said. He has only said that when he transcends, that also he has not said about transcending the gunas. He said that Nanyam gunebhyah kartaram yada drashta anupashyati gunebhyascha param vetti madbhavam sodigacchati. So he has only said that when he does not create any karta beyond the guna, and also he knows something which transcends the guna. This much only he has said. Now he is asking that how does it transcend then? What does it do? What are the lakshanas of transcendence? So exactly as he did earlier also in the other chapters. Chaitan Trin. So it becomes Chaitams Trin. That is a Sandhi rule. Kimacharaha Katham Chaitan Trin Gunan Ativartati. It becomes Chaitams by Sandhi. The others are simple. Kaihi Lingaihi Trin becomes Kairilingai Trin. Kaihi Lingaihi Trin becomes Kairilingai Trin. Shri Bhagavan
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha
Prakasham cha pravrittim cha
Prakasham cha pravrittim cha
Mohameva cha Pandava
Mohameva cha Pandava
Nadveshti sampravrittani
Nadveshti sampravrittani
Na nivrittani kankshati
Nanivrittani kankshati
Prakasham cha pravrittim cha
Prakasham cha pravrittim cha
Mohameva cha Pandava
Mohameva cha Pandava
Nadveshti sampravrittani
Nadveshti sampravrittani
Na nivrittani kankshati.
Nanivrittani kankshati.
Now, I think you have not forgotten, Prakasha represents
Sat.
Sattva-guna. Pravritti represents Rajoguna. Moham represents Tamoguna. So he says, Prakasham cha pravrittim cha moham eva cha Pandava nat dveshti. द्वेष नहीं करते हैं. न द्वेष्टि मीन्स द्वेष नहीं करते हैं. संप्रवृत्तानि न निवृत्तानि कांक्षति. कांक्षति मीन्स ही डज नॉट डिजायर फॉर and he does not hate also. Dveshti, he is not intolerant about what? Sampravrittani and nivrittani. Not dveshti, sampravrittani. That means when any of these gunas come, suppose tamoguna has come, he does not get agitated by that, oh, tamoguna has come, what will happen to me? I want sattva-guna, I want sattva-guna, I will not sleep, I will not doze. When it comes, ठीक है. Na nivrittani kankshati, that he does not particularly desire that it should go and this happen. He knows that they will come and go and one after another will come and go, and whatever happens according to that. Suppose there is some disease and you are given some medicine, naturally you will be under the spell of tamoguna for some time. Particularly if cortisone is given, this body will become swollen and your brain will not, reading the Bhagavad Gita, nothing you will be able to understand. ठीक है, that also is okay. Now, is it that he is not detesting, or he is not is intolerant about any of the adverse gunas coming in, he doesn't like, or he is not particularly desiring for sattva guna also to come and help him? Nothing like that. Does it mean that he will get caught by the tamoguna, that in the negative characteristics of tamoguna like pramada, moha and all those things, and the adverse characteristics of rajoguna like desireful activity and all? No. Because to become the Trigunatita, he has already got over the Sangha and the Ragadvesha. Without that, he will not be able to become Trigunatita. So each of the gunas, the sangha created by the gunas, that is the sattva guna creates the jnana sukha sangha and jnana sangha. Rajoguna creates the karma sangha. And tamoguna creates ajnana and pramada, moha, alasya. All those features he has, that constricted, selfish, gain-oriented, desire-motivated things have gone. So it will not come with that effect. But it will have, as in nature, when the tamoguna is prominent, predominant, it is ratri, night comes. Like that, when tamoguna is predominant, he will either sleep or have a less illumination. The brain will not work so sharp, it may happen. But those negative qualities of tamoguna he has already got over by winning over the sangha and the raga dvesha and desires. Because he has won over the desire, here he is saying, na nivrittani kankshati. This is the further transcendental level of overcoming the desire. Even when the sattva guna also, he is not desirous of it anymore. Suppose, as we told you the other day when Swamiji was given to meditation in the ashram, decades back. So somebody from the village came and he wanted to see. So Swamiji was finding it very difficult to get up from the meditation and see. That is the day he decided that I should not meditate anymore. And where is the need to meditate? There was no need also. I will not meditate anymore. If because of meditation I get into the sattvika sukha sangha, that I am not able to attend to the people, I don't want it. Now, that means that sangha to the, already sattva guna peak was there. That is why the meditation was like that. Now there he is not trying to get back that sattvika sukha anymore. So he is not kankshati, that desire is further, that it is not a desire for that, as we say, that for knowing the self, finally we have to get over the desire for self-realization also. Because desire means you are small, you are looking for something different from you. Any desire means I am small and I have an insufficiency in me. That is why I am looking for that. For a Trigunatita, he has to get over all that. He will not look for self. If at all it is not self-realization, he will not worry about self-realization also. He will not bother about anything at all. He has become fulfilled. See, generally our problem is we are born with an insufficiency, is it not? Right from the birth. Why are we looking for joy? Be it initially for games or milk or fruits or whatever, as a baby. From that onwards, different things we are looking for. Is it not that throughout our life we are looking for joy? It is because of the insufficienciness. If you become sufficient, if you feel sufficient, will you look for anything? So this insufficiency is making us look for a second, look for something different from me. Am I clear? This insufficiency makes us look for something different from me. That means the smallness of the I is ingrained in that insufficiency and looking for a second. So unless we stop looking for a second, we will never be able to get the self in its own pristine form. That looking for a second means, where is the second? The self is universal. Everything is within me. The moment we are looking for something else means I consider myself to be small. So that is the greatest hindrance there also. So he does not, when sattva guna increases, he behaves as a sattva guni. When rajoguna increases, he behaves as a rajoguni. When tamoguna increases, he behaves as a tamoguni. But at the same time, the adverse negative qualities causing bondage by the three gunas, none of them will be there for him. Tamoguna will also not bind him, rajoguna will also not bind him, sattvaguna also will not bind him. He will become natural like the whole universe. As the things are happening, the various plants, flowers, they are blossoming, growing, everything is moving. There is no desire motivated anything. There is no tamoguna is there, rajoguna is there, sattoguna is there, but nothing is causing any bondage anywhere. It's liberated action. So all his actions will be liberated action, freed of the sangha created by the three gunas. Prabuddham vimuktam vikaradihinam prasannam sada nitya bodhasvarupam param nishchalam nirgunam sarvarupam bhajeham sadanusmarami pranomi. Prabuddham vikaradihinam prasannam sada nitya bodhasvarupam param nishchalam nirgunam sarvarupam bhajeham sadanusmarami pranomi.